Hi guys, it's Reagan, and today I'm going to be talking about Rian Johnson and his thoughts on Reylo. So because of The Last Jedi coming out on Blu-ray, we really have a greater understanding on Rian Johnson's process of The Last Jedi and how he made it, and just all of his commentary through a lot of the scenes, because I have watched the director and the Jedi, all of the special features, his director commentary of The Last Jedi, and also his South by Southwest interview about The Last Jedi, and then some other interviews that he did for the Blu-ray release. So I have watched a lot of Rian Johnson's commentary on everything. So I have found a lot of cool stuff that I thought that he's kind of confirming Reylo, but I'm not going to say that because I really don't think that anything is confirmed until we get like a kiss or something, which hopefully we'll get in episode 9, I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, but before we get started, I just want to kind of remind you guys that YouTube's been kind of weird lately with like the subscription boxes. So if you want to watch all my videos and just be notified, then please subscribe and hit the notification bell right by there, so that way you'll just know when I post a new video. Okay, so yeah, so let's get started. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is that Rian Johnson said when he creates a movie that he is starting out with the characters. So he kind of knows where the characters are going to end up, and that's how he starts to write. So you can kind of really tell that the plot is character driven throughout it, as I feel like we've gotten a lot of character development with a lot of these characters, which I really enjoyed. For me, I personally just love character development, and I feel that especially in the middle of the trilogy, I feel like that was kind of needed, as The Force Awakens really introduces us to everyone, but it's all kind of more general background for each character, where The Last Jedi shows us all of the characters' motivations and what they are doing. So then also Rian Johnson said that he was most excited to work with Kylo Ren's character, and I think that that is kind of evident in The Last Jedi, as personally for me, I feel that Kylo Ren has the most character development throughout the movie. And for me, like, going into The Last Jedi, where in The Force Awakens, I just kind of thought that Kylo was just kind of this annoying Vader wannabe that killed his father, and then, like most fans, then seeing The Last Jedi, really seeing all of his vulnerabilities, I really come to understand that character, and I really have enjoyed the character. That's why I think I love The Last Jedi so much, because of Kylo Ren's character. So when Rian Johnson was writing The Last Jedi, he kind of had this question that he needed to establish, where it was like, how are these two going to develop and play off of each other, kind of two halves of this whole, when he's talking about Rey and Kylo, and that he said that they are two halves of this protagonist in The Last Jedi. So he really had to find out a way to establish that, and he just wanted these characters to talk. He didn't want there to be a hostage situation where Rey was imprisoned and Kylo was kind of interrogating her and things like that, like kind of like The Force Awakens, and he didn't want it to be where Kylo goes to Act 2 and there's a physical confrontation with Rey. He just wanted them to talk. So that's why he made this Force bond and like this connection, because he wanted it to be as simple and intimate as possible, and he just wanted these characters to talk, and that's what he needed to do. So for me, I kind of think that if he really needed to do that, I think that the story, overall arc of the trilogy, obviously I think that Reylo is endgame, but because of that, I really think that Rian Johnson had to find a way where these characters ended The Force Awakens, and Kylo kind of is intrigued by Rey, but Rey hates Kylo, and he needed to find out a way for Rey and Kylo to kind of meet in the middle and have a way better understanding of each other, and just kind of develop this relationship. That's what was really essential in The Last Jedi. And I feel like after Rian has done this and he has really brought these two together, I feel that in episode 9, JJ is going to obviously finish out that story arc and kind of show where these characters are after they have a better, deeper understanding of each other, and then just go into it from there, and obviously end at a point where I feel that Kylo's redemption will take place. And then, and I think the most important Force bond scene, where Rey and Kylo touch hands. Rian Johnson says that Rey sees an opportunity in Kylo, or she sees something more in him. So really at this point, I feel like both the characters have a really good understanding of each other. And so they understand both of each other's layers, and Rey has more sympathy for Kylo and just kind of realizes that they're both really alone and two individuals on opposite sides that are equals, but they are both just kind of alone, and so that's why I think they're drawn together. Also, kind of on a crazier note, Rian Johnson said that that scene is the closest we will get to a sex scene in Star Wars. And I was like, what? And then Mark Hamill kind of plays off of that, and he's like, did you see that hand touching scene? I never got to touch any hands. And so I think that was kind of funny, but that, when he said that, I was like, what the heck? That's crazy. And I feel like he's kind of, everyone now, I think that after The Last Jedi has been released, because Reylo has become such a bigger thing, and I feel like that ship is really, like, exploded. I feel that Rian Johnson's kind of playing into that more, because there's a lot of things that people hated with The Last Jedi, but I think that people really did end up liking Rey and Kylo and kind of their kind of connection, because it's intriguing to see opposite ends, good and evil, interact with each other throughout it and not really be just black and white enemies. And then in The Director and the Jedi, Daisy Ridley said, she said, they touch and build this incredible intimacy. Luke should be the one that is nurturing Rey, but it really is Kylo that is. And I found that quote to be very telling, because it just kind of shows, obviously throughout it, he says that all the Force connections are really intimate, and just Kylo, he's kind of an interesting character, where Luke in this movie, I feel that he's very emulated off of Yoda and Obi-Wan, and just kind of there, but he's also kind of distant. And then, but Kylo, like, has an emotional connection to Rey, and is her, like, closer to her age, and he's in a similar situation with all these powers, and he's on the opposite side, but he still is relatively young, as so is Rey, where, like, Luke is very powerful, but he's a generation older than them, so he can't really relate. So I felt that quote was very telling. And Rian Johnson says throughout it, he says that Rey kind of goes through her hero's journey, where she's kind of like discovering herself, part of adolescence. And then Kylo is also kind of in this angry phase of adolescence. Both of them are kind of growing up together. And I feel that their coming together has really matured them and really developed a lot of their characters, and they see more of both sides, and they're not so naive anymore. And then Rian says there is a primal connection between Rey and Kylo, as they are the only ones like with these powers. And so kind of, and I feel that primal connection is just kind of also the Force kind of drawing them together, because they are equals, and that's kind of what I think he's kind of emulating. And then it's also stated, referencing the novelization a lot too, but the cosmic Force are kind of drawing them together for a reason, and that's why I think they're drawn to each other like magnets. And then kind of that primal connection is kind of showing that there is kind of more of a physical connection between them, and it's not just about their powers, it's just maybe they are too, like, kind of falling for each other. And then I think that's even shown even farther after, when Rey confronts Luke and she's like, did you create Kylo Ren? And then Luke tells her in that scene after she fights him a little bit, and then he says, you opened yourself up to the dark side for a pair of pretty eyes. And that line was cut from the movie, obviously. But I feel like that line is very telling, that there's kind of more to it than just like the powers. It's kind of Rey has a little crush on Kylo almost, and they have kind of more of a physical connection there. So I thought that was interesting, and I really did like that line. And then when Rey is stating that Kylo is the last hope for the Resistance, Rian says that she really needed that for justification. And I thought that was interesting that he said justification, because I feel that kind of tells that Rey is really drawn to Kylo, and she is drawn and like wants to see him, but she just needed a reason to go and try to turn him and redeem him and meet with him. So that was kind of interesting, because I think that obviously they got closer in that last Force bond, but I think the Force is ultimately drawing them together so they can be, she wants to be even closer to him and actually be physically there with him. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then when Rey arrives on the Supremacy, they almost cut that, but they really realized that they needed those reactions, so they did some reshoots with it, because they needed Rey and Kylo to see each other kind of in that, to really have the story go to the elevator. And I feel like, once again, the novelization, but I feel like in the novelization that was a bigger thing, where there was like a smile and some other stuff, and I thought it was kind of interesting, more couple-like, but they kind of needed those reactions to kind of show that Rey really did mean to go there, and that Kylo was waiting for her as soon as she got there, like he said she was coming. And then Rian says that Kylo knows as soon as he walks into the throne room with Rey that he knows he has to kill Snoke. He's just looking for an opportunity to kill him. and that Kylo really is, like we've shown, like it's been shown and stuff, that Kylo knows that he cannot take on all the guards and Snoke, so he really kind of needed Rey to help him. And so Rey just ultimately gave him strength to do it. And then after, when they fight the guard, Rian refers to Kylo and Rey as our heroes, and that kind of just goes back to them being two parts of the protagonist, where Kylo isn't the antagonist. He is just kind of associated with the antagonist. I feel like The Force Awakens antagonist was Snoke, and then Snoke again in The Last Jedi, and I think that the antagonist is more General Hux, and probably setting up for that to be the antagonist in episode 9. And then he just said that Kylo was making an emotional appeal to Rey to join him. It's really not like a power match, like when some people have said that Kylo just wants ultimate power, he wants to be a supreme leader, but really he's lonely. So we see him being very vulnerable on that side. He found a new confidant, he found a new companion, and he just wants her to rule with him. And so we really see all of his vulnerability, and throughout it we just see all of his vulnerability, he says, through Rey's eyes, which I think is essential, because if we, the audience, is really like starting to understand Kylo better, as Rian says, like it's more importantly, Rey is understanding Kylo better, so that way, like, you can really tell that there's more of a relationship there. Rian says that Kylo comes into his own as this kind of villain, which is kind of interesting that he uses the word kind of a little bit. And then he says that he's like let go. He is not this Vader wannabe anymore. He is the supreme leader, and he has had what he's always strived for, and he had what he always thought he wanted. But I feel like, especially in episode 9, that what we'll see is that this is really what Kylo really wanted. He thought that he wanted to be in charge and rule everything, but what he really wanted was just someone to love him, because he felt distant from his parents. He just needs like a companion, and he really just needs love in his life. All you need is love, you know what I'm saying? And then obviously, like when Rey and Finn reunite, Rian says these two friends reunite, and he kind of shows that there's like a connection between them throughout it, and he says that we're trying to connect these two storylines, so that's why the beacon is in play. But I did like how he said that they're two friends, because to me, Finn and Rey are platonic. Like, that's what I say all the time. Like, I'm like, they're platonic. Whenever I see it online, I'm like, okay guys, okay. I just felt, especially in The Force Awakens, there kind of was a little bit hint that maybe they could get together, but then after this, I feel like the relationships that were developed were more Rey and Kylo, and I feel that if Rey and Finn were in game, there would be a lot more development between them. And as we've seen in all of the other trilogies, that if they are like a romantic couple, like Padme and Anakin were together a lot during the second movie. In Attack of the Clones, they were really together, and that's kind of where their relationship really developed. And then also, as we've seen in Empire Strikes Back, that Han and Leia were together a lot, and that's where their relationship really developed. Of course, with those two, we have a wedding at the end of Attack of the Clones, and then we have an I love you, and then I know in Empire Strikes Back. But, you know, take what you can get in this trilogy, but I think it's kind of more understated. I think that would be a bigger, better reveal for all these people that aren't really paying so much attention. So I feel that if Rey and Finn were really in game, that there would be a lot more of them together. And then Rian just kind of ends with, Rey and Kylo are now complicated enemies. And that's kind of interesting going into episode 9. That's what he says. Because whenever I think about complicated relationships are always interesting, and I just think it's complicated. So, yeah, I thought that was my word association. As soon as I heard that word, I was like, oh, like every couple be like, it's complicated. So yeah, so really, I'm really looking forward to episode 9 and seeing more of what has to happen. And like I said before, I think that the character arc really shown that Rian Johnson really needed to bridge these two together and have their relationship really developed in the second movie for the trilogy, to really have this overall character arc between Rey and Kylo, and ultimately I feel like that will lead to Kylo's redemption. And I do think, that's why I think that Reylo is in game, because there was so much meticulously developed, and that's why they were essential to talk to each other throughout this. So yeah, so I'm excited to see what J.J. Abrams does in episode 9. Okay, so thanks guys for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, like this video if you liked it. And see you later guys. Bye. Thanks for watching.